Check, check, check. 1, 2. I'm in the mini studio with my friend Howard. Here he is. Say what's up.
What's up? What else am I supposed to say?
We're gonna do a live stream. He's a old school bike messenger out of the Bay Area, San Francisco specifically. So I'll let you tell a little bit about yourself before we get started on any heavy topics. We're kind of maybe bounce all over the place. Bike culture, old school bike culture versus today's bike culture. Things that have changed over time. What what you've seen as a bike messenger over the years and how everything has changed. But kind of tell us how did you end up in the Bay Area? Where are you originally from? These kind of things, if you could.
Okay, well, I was born in Cleveland, Ohio in 1952. And in 1962, Mom and Dad brought us out here to the Bay Area. Grew up in Northern California and lived various places up till I was about 30 in various places in California. And in 1982, I came to San Francisco. My first job was as a security guard, and I was bored to death. And I would see messengers coming in. I knew there had been I knew there were bike messengers before I came up here, but in that context of seeing them, on the job coming in to the places where I worked, and I would be seeing them doing their job, and I'd like to ride a bike, and I would ask him a little bit about it, and I actually got laid off only a couple months after becoming a security guard. And so on September 13th, 1982, I was hired as a bike messenger by the old Specialized Messenger Service. They are no longer in operation.
Tell us a little bit about that. What is that Specialized Messenger? Is it like as specialized a bike brand or
no. I think we were in existence before Specialized Bikes. I know Specialized Bikes started right about that time. So it was a messenger company like many others, doing legal filings, bank deposits,
paperwork stuff. Yeah.
And
so in the city between the big buildings.
Yeah, at Specialized, I pretty much worked downtown.
Got it.
You get out to for those of you familiar with San Francisco, we get out to the Van Ness, Franklin, Gough Street area, and a little bit into the Mission District, and so. That was my first job as a messenger. Our company was very small, so I kind of took baby steps into the community. And at that time, there was a lot of snobbery, to put it bluntly. And unfortunately, I think it still exists, hopefully not as much.
Bike messenger snobbery.
Yeah, by the veterans.
Was this movie already out with Kevin Bacon?
That horrible movie was not out.
So this is pre that movie.
Pre that movie,
okay,
yeah.
I gotcha.
There was I remember one time one guy was working. It was around 7 p.m. and I said, "Oh, wow, are you still working?" He says, "No, I'm just doing this for fun." And I was like, well, aren't we all? And anyway, he just copped an attitude because he was a veteran and I was a rookie, and I was asking, in his mind, a stupid question. But he could have been doing it for fun. He could have been going to a show. He could have been going home.
But he wasn't.
Yeah, but I guess he wasn't having fun. So that was kind of some of the snobbery that existed, but there was also people like the Maher brothers, who Sean and Pat Maher, who unfortunately are no longer with us, but they were very receptive, very friendly, and of course Rick Blind. Shout out to Rick, Ranger Rick Shark, the senior San Francisco messenger, maybe even the senior messenger in the world, because he's been doing it since '78, I believe.
Wow, that's a long time.
Yeah.
It's a long time.
So for example, that meant he was doing it for 4 years when I started back in '82. So there were a couple people who would be friendly to rookies and welcoming. And
How big is this community at the time? Like in terms of the full encompassing size of it, like how many companies are there? How many is there? Because today, for those that don't know about Bike Messenger stuff, typically they hang out at like one designated location, like when you're waiting for packages to come back and forth or waiting for a job. Like in San Francisco, it's one post, and down here in LA, there's like a whole thing called the Ledge Foods, and it's like a bunch of dudes that hang out by a ledge in downtown LA waiting for packages and stuff like this. So like in the 70s, was there like a one post, or sorry, not in the 80s, was there a one post kind of place?
Yeah, just if I may nitpick here.
Yeah.
We now hang out. We got kicked out of one post. I think Taylor talked about that a little, and and I think he got it right. So we got kicked out of there, sent to the wall. We got kicked off the wall. We are now near the ferry building. It's a little flag pedestal on the Embarcadero. For those of you familiar with that area of San Francisco, the Embarcadero is it's a boulevard, and you have westbound traffic, or we might say northbound traffic, depending on your perspective, or northwest, or the side closest to the bay, going in one direction, and then a parallel 2 or 3 lanes going the opposite direction. And there's a large island in between, and on that island is where we're hanging out now.
Yeah. I've seen a few clips of some of my friends. They're in that spot now, and I think they tried another spot before that, and that also didn't work. You guys also got kicked out of there. So one post. I mean, I remember one post because I lived up there during the time, and it was just cool that all the bike races kind of started out there at that spot, and so it was a lot of fun to always hang around. My younger brother was a bike messenger up there for a while, and he was always hanging out at one post and smoking weed and drinking purple cans and stuff. Shout out to Rossi drinking purple cans.
So to get back to your question, what was what was our hangout in the 80s? Lots of times it would be at our companies, because our companies were actually okay with us meeting in the bike room, especially the larger companies like Western, which is still around, US Mess, which is not still around. But they would have what they call the bike room, where if we wanted to, we could park our bikes there and go home,
so they had space for you guys.
Yeah. Or the bikes would be repaired there. But we also would hang out after work at those places. Another place was Harveys, which is at 5th and Shipley in the South of Market neighborhood. And there was a little... we would just hang out outside of Harvey's. Later in the mid-'80s, Harvey I think he owned a nearby parking lot, like just a couple doors down, and we would hang out there too.
Cool.
So those were, in the 80s, as I say, often in the bike rooms of the larger companies or nearby Harveys. Harveys was a corner store, and he would give us credit like an old school neighborhood corner store, which seems...
That doesn't happen anymore. No way.
Yeah, I was going to say that's a tradition that seems to be disappearing from America. And if we were really going to make America great again, then we bring back corner store credit.
Corner store credit. Oh my God.
Yeah, I mean
that would be cool.
Yeah, I could remember. Thanks to Harvey, I would not have to go put my money in a bank. He would cash my checks. I tried not to get on that credit bandwagon, but it was nice.
People used to. I mean, I used to cash checks because I was against using credit and things like this. I still am mostly against the use of credit and digital money and stuff. But
yeah,
I remember getting a check when I was young, going to my corner store, and the guy would cash it out, give me the money. I would spend some money in the store. Of course, you got money, so I spent some money at the store, get some things I needed, go back home and put my money away. So like this kind of thing, it doesn't happen anymore. There's no more sense of like community like in the small scale. But it would be cool to see something like that come back. I had a question about those days as well. I'm getting like a mental picture of like what it looked like to be a messenger and to travel in and out of the city and all these kind of things. So one of the things I was curious about is what were the bike shops like in those days? Like, were you guys going to the bike shop to get your bike fixed? And how was the bike shop culture in those days?
There were it was kind of old school bike shops. You would get people who were mechanics would start their shop. Occasionally, a bike company would have a shop.
So like smaller shops.
Yeah. There were some that were fairly big, especially on Stanion Street in San Francisco, and there's still a couple.
That's
there.
where I worked for many years when I lived in the Bay Area. On that street. I think that's the oldest bike shop in the city, right?
Avenue.
Avenue Cyclers was one I worked at, and there was one just down the street from it. I forget the name, but it's on the corner.
Yeah,
it's pretty big. That's the oldest bike shop in the city.
Yeah,
can't think of the name right now.
Yeah.
But it was right next to Avenue Cycler. But I worked at Avenue Cycler for many years. Shout out to all those dudes at Avenue. They're very cool. Right in front of the Golden Gate Park and stuff. For anyone who isn't familiar, but so I just I work in bike shops and I've owned a few bike shops, so I'm just curious, what the bike shop stuff is like. But let me ask you some more questions.
Well, if I could just
go ahead,
expound a little bit on that, is that then some messengers who are good at mechanics would open up shops.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and some of them, there's Box Dog. Shout out to Box Dog. Shout out to Heavy Metal. Kim, thanks.
Yeah, I'm familiar with
thanks
both
for the
those
credit.
places.
At least we can get credit at bike shops, or some of them, and it's usually one started, as in the case of...
Yeah, I've gotten stuff from Box Dog bikes, and I've bought stuff from the dudes at Heavy Metal bikes as well, and frames and whatever. We barter stuff, trade stuff, back in the day when I was up there. I thought Box Dog, are they still there? Box Dog bikes?
I think so.
Yeah.
I haven't been, I haven't been by since the pandemic, and that's mostly just because it's not really on my main routes. I used to cover more of the city, both as a messenger and just as a recreational cyclist.
Yeah.
But
So you haven't been into a bike shop since the whole COVID thing started.
well, I go to heavy metal a
Yeah,
lot,
yeah, yeah.
and occasionally Freewheel. Shout out to Freewheel on Hayes and Ashbury.
Yeah, the first location, their
Yeah.
second location closed
on
down.
Valencia.
Yeah, on Valencia.
Yeah.
That spot is gone now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I noticed that there was a period of time where bike shops were expanding and they were getting bigger stores, two stores. Like
Yeah.
some of my friends at San Francisco, shout out to Jason. He had a small store over on like near Fulton, and then
Mhm.
he just went and opened a second store on Ashbury as well. Big old store, like enormous store, and it didn't last more than like a year and a half, 2 years before it closed down. So I've noticed that there was like a period of growth,
Mhm.
and then there was like a period of like tapering back down to the original, like where they came from, kind of thing. Freewheel did the same thing. A lot of these places did the same thing. Valencia Cyclery also expanded.
Right.
They bought another building next to theirs. Now
Yeah.
they're bigger. So there's a lot of it. COVID, a lot, like for bike shops in particular, COVID was good. Like so many people went out to buy bikes, first time bike customers. The people that typically are not into riding bikes. But what about for bike messenger work? Did it go up? Is there more work to do, or is there less bike messenger work to do now?
There's
during COVID.
way less.
Way less?
Well, yeah. I got laid off when the lockdown started on my brother and sister's birthday.
Oh no!
Thank you, thank you, little tiny microorganism that controls our bodies. Yeah. Shout out to my brother and sister. Hi Pat. Hi Pete. So yeah, that when the lockdown started, I remember saying, I was told that our company Specialty was closing. It was the oldest messenger service in the city. And I remember getting mad at my dispatcher, not mad at her, but mad in front of her and saying, we're essential workers too.
Yeah, I don't see how you're not essential.
Well, the problem is that lots of our clients aren't, or they were going to work from home. And so we lost a lot of business, and there's still talk that Specialty, shout out to Chief, there's talk that Specialty may revive again, and shout out to Irma, my dispatcher. Sorry I got mad, but yeah, we are essential, and some companies, such as Western Messenger, were able to stay afloat and still are, and have started to revive a little.
So let me ask you, like, because will you say COVID negatively affected the smaller, I would say, independent companies that handle bike messenger work? But what about this new phenomenon of all of these, let's call them the gig economy, right?
Mhm.
Like DoorDash, Uber Eats, and all these app type work that bike messengers are doing these days. Did that slow down as well, or did that go increase in volume?
As I understand,
Do you do any of that stuff?
yeah, I do. As I understand, it's increased a little bit, and it will I'm guessing it will continue, although Caviar did die out. I think just before COVID, or well, actually, I think a couple of years, because I was doing it and then I got on it Special T, and I got on Special T at 2017, and I think Caviar went down in 2018 because I quit Caviar, and so in 2000, I quit Caviar in 2017, so I think they went down in 2018.
So let me ask you: are you? Because a lot of people are against these type of apps and this type of work. How do you feel about them? Like, do you think in a time where there's no bike messenger work from the independent companies, and you could find it on these apps, are they coming in clutch for you? Do you use them? Do you like them, or are you against them? Do you not like using them? Like, even if you have to, like, because you gotta use them, but like, are you like are inside of in your true self? Are you with it? Yes or no?
No. You know, I have to appreciate the fact that they exist so that we have that option, but there's a big problem with them in that they take away too much of the human interaction. Once in a while, you need a dispatcher to talk to and say, here's this problem, here's this unusual problem.
Right.
Nobody's home, with
stuff like that.
Yeah. Now with with most of the paperwork ones, that would usually mean, can I slip it under the door? Obviously, you can't do that with food.
Right.
But still, you do have things like somebody isn't answering the door, but the app is telling you that it has to be received by them. And there's no, they usually let you leave it at the door and you take a picture. But one of the things I don't like is that they ask me when I take a picture if I want to, or if I'm willing to, give DoorDash access to my photo on my phone.
Right.
And they ask it in such a way that am I talking about when I take a photo of of a friend of mine off the job, or is it just specific to when I'm on the app, when I'm on their app? And I don't like the wording of that.
So you distrust the technology behind some of the services.
Yeah.
So and we spoke about this a little bit while we were on the air, but you also mentioned you don't use social media per se, so you're not really on social media. You're So this is why this talk's kind of interesting, because since you technically don't participate in social media, there's no way that it would influence your thinking in one way or another, since you're not on it. So you still keep it old school in that regard. So that's kind of why I thought this podcast would be interesting. Another thing. Well, all right. So you use the apps. You're weary of the technology. You're not. You don't like the fact that it's asking you for permissions. And there's more than just the photos. Like, these apps ask, like, GPS track your location. They want to know. They want to have access to your microphone. They want. I've worked for some of these companies. Like, I'll give you a little inside tip on some of this stuff. I worked for Uber when they did the bicycle line in San Francisco. Have you seen those red jump bikes that were everywhere?
Yeah.
So I worked for that company mostly because I just wanted to see how they functioned from the inside out. Not really because I needed to. But the Uber jump company, they didn't make money from people renting the bikes. They made money from collecting information of who's riding the bikes, where are they riding the bikes to, how long do they ride, where are they shopping, and these things were more information was more valuable to them. They would sell this information to third parties than the actual bike ride. Actually, the bike ride of those rideshare bikes, it was kind of a loss. They didn't really make money doing that. And with the whole messenger work on these app things, it's kind of similar. Like if you think about it, the customer is only ever paying like, I don't know, maybe like $2-3 for a delivery on these services, right? Like if you go to the restaurant, let's say you were gonna spend $20 on the app, you would spend maybe $23 or maybe $24, right? Maybe $3-4 on top for this delivery, and the app corporation pays you to do the delivery. That's whether you're driving or on a bike. Obviously, if you're driving, it doesn't make any sense because the gas and the car maintenance costs and all these other things get in the way, and they're going to take away from your end profit. So I don't think driving and using these apps is very wise. But let's say that you were on a bike and you're using human power, right? There's still some maintenance on your bike, right? There's still some flat tires to deal with. There's still some things to deal with there, and they don't account for any of that, and they don't give you like spending money for bike maintenance, and they don't care about that. So there's that to consider. But even then, you are making some money doing it. The company itself, though, are they making money when they are handling these deliveries? I don't think they are. I think they're maybe breaking off even, maybe making a little bit of money. I think most of their money is coming from collecting data. Where are they shopping? What are they people buying? What is more popular? They sell this data to other companies like Yelp and Google, and they rank people's businesses and stuff based on that. So, I mean, I have friends who are in the restaurant industry, and they don't make much money selling food on these apps, because when you're selling food on the app, like they're collecting a large portion of your sale, and most of the time you're having to offer discounts as a restaurant, owner, like for special apps. Like if you do Postmates or any one of these, like there's always some kind of deal that they're working out with the restaurant owner. And a lot of people have complained, restaurants in particular, that they're kind of getting gypped by these companies. They're not really making much money. So.
That's another reason why I don't like them.
Yeah.
I get mixed feelings, mixed signals. Some restaurants do like dealing with the apps, so I don't know exactly what the
you're right about that.
Fine tuning is as far as what some restaurants, what works for some restaurants, but is counterproductive for others. And I wanted to expound a little bit about. They do have DoorDash does have a phone number you can call if you do need troubleshooting, but it's hard to find. It should be something that's always on the app, right there in front of you. Call this number if you have a problem. And I can see where, that might mean too many people calling when they should do their own troubleshooting. But there's ways to discourage that from the way we did it with real messenger services. It's like, hey, rookie, quit calling for help so much. Get a map or learn your job better, and a little bit of tough love might be appropriate.
And then this phone number on the DoorDash app what kind of help do they provide? Like, are they giving you navigation? Are they giving you, or is it just specific with the app and maybe problems that occur there?
It's it happens pretty rarely. I think that's because I have that previous experience, so I know how to deal with problems that a rookie should get a chance to deal with a human being and have that kind of help. I remember in one case, I went to the restaurant. They said it's going to be about 30 minutes. And that's another thing. They don't pay very well for waiting time.
That's right. Yeah. So is that a problem? Like when there's like surges of like during like rush hour and stuff like this when there's a lot of people out. Like,
Um, I I'm usually tolerable for anything up to 10 minutes. But when I was told 30 minutes, I had to get on the phone and find the troubleshooter. And as I say, I had to navigate the app rather than having that number right in my face. And, I got on, I called, and I think I had to also call the customer. It was a while ago, but I basically ended up, plus I didn't have much information to give the customer. Like I said, well, this is going to cost more, but I don't know how much more. And so I didn't have that much information to give the customer. And I was able to get to drop the to drop that order, and somebody else had to go get it when they were ready because I didn't want to wait 30 minutes. And I also felt that I was gypping the customer, or excuse me, shorting the customer because they were going to be stuck with something that was either the app's fault, the restaurant's fault, or both.
Yeah. Yeah, it gets a little complicated with these apps. I mean, they're having to deal with a lot of different things altogether. But you get to communicate with the end customer, right? Like you can text them and you can ask them what they want if there's something that's not available and stuff like this, right? So
yeah,
I've never done that kind of work, but I can see how it can be complicated for the companies to. I'll give them that at least they're doing something like they set up a system. Personally, I would like to see that system implemented by a smaller company. I think like imagine if a bicycle messenger company installed into their business model some of this technology and was able to get people to be as efficient, communicate with the customers and stuff like this. I think it would work. I would much rather give my business to the small company.
Yeah.
If like for example, in LA is so big, right? LA is enormous. But let's say that we live in the South Bay, which is where we are now, this like southern Manhattan Beach area. If we're down here by the airport, there should be a bicycle messenger company that works in this area and maybe does some subcontracting with some of these bigger corporations, right? So that you guys do all of the deliveries in a certain region, right? And then let's say North Hollywood, which is quite a ways from here. Let's say there's another local messenger company there, and those guys handle the deliveries in that area, and they it's fairly simple. You do some subcontracting work. You get contracts with bigger corporations. You say, hey, I want to do the deliveries for you guys. We would do a better job than if you hired a lot of individuals on 1099s. I think bike messengers shouldn't be offered 1099s. I think they should get like a W-2, W-4 at the end of the year.
Yeah, that's another thing I don't like about DoorDash and companies like them.
Yeah, they're subcontracting you, and that's not good.
Yeah.
You should be getting paid a wage for what you do. It's a job, right? And you should be getting benefits. You should be getting government, whatever government benefits are available to you, depending on your, income bracket and all this. You should be, you should have access to all of that. And I think that these companies, that's the biggest cheap out that they've done is not give people proper wages.
Yeah, and in the 80s, we were getting this transition from these companies that just hired us as ICs, as independent contractors. We were getting away from that in the 90s and in the turn of the millennium. And now it's coming back through these multi-billion-dollar multinational corporations that can definitely afford
Oh yeah, they can.
Yeah, I mean they've got billions.
So now it's coming back in a different way.
Yeah,
I didn't know it had happened before. That's
yeah,
interesting to know.
yeah.
And how did it happen the first time? Was it like small companies didn't want to pay out? They just wanted they didn't want to deal with the taxes, right? Because it costs. I guess it costs money for every employee you have,
Mm-hmm.
and they have to pay tax for every employee, right? So if you give someone a 1099, I guess you don't have to pay the tax, right? That's the whole game, right?
I think they do, but it's the benefits. Yeah, I
Yeah,
honestly
the
can't.
benefits as well. They're gonna
Yeah,
cut out,
yeah,
any type of benefits. You're not gonna get anything.
yeah,
And with some of these companies like Uber Jump and like Metro Bike Share and the Bird scooters and all those electric vehicle companies, with those guys, they're a little more suspicious than even that. What they do is they hire people with 1099s, but then there's like some law in California that says that if you work for longer than 1 year on 1099, that you're required to then be turned into an employee. So they just fire people before they hit the year, and they just
Mm-hmm.
hire new people, and they just continue this cycle of firing people before the year comes up, so that they never have to pay benefits or 401k or any of this stuff. So they do that kind of stuff. And some of those companies do offer W4, W2s, but not for the guys out on the street with the apps. They
Right.
offer it for the internal management or for like the bicycle mechanics, the guys that are
Mm-hmm.
servicing the bikes. But they really want to outsource everything. Like even charging the things. Like you see those scooters out there, there's dudes driving around in vans and trucks,
Right. Yeah.
scooping these things up, throwing them in their truck, taking them to their house, charging them up, and getting like $2-3 per charge. It's like, yo, that's not even worth it. Like your electricity bill's gonna cost more than that, and the gasoline for having to pick the things up. It's just weird.
Yeah.
But I can see why it's advantageous for these companies because they spread out real big, and they don't actually have to have any infrastructure. They're essentially borrowing the infrastructure that's already there.
Yeah.
So for Uber, they don't have to pay drivers, and they don't have to purchase vehicles or do any of this. They just simply, pay someone else to use their car to
Yeah.
give people rides. If you want something to deliver, they pay someone else to use their bicycle or vehicle to deliver it, right? If you want to charge your scooter, you pay someone else to put it in their home and charge it. They don't even pay for rent to store the bikes or the scooters. They just leave them out on the sidewalk. Like these companies are really, really spreading out real far. They got real long tentacles, and they're not doing anything about controlling when and how that stuff gets controlled. So the biggest problem that I see with that, this is my biggest problem with this is like YouTube. When you have a problem and you reach out, there's no actual human there. You know what I mean? Like where's the human?
Yeah.
Where's the guy that I need to talk to? Like you were saying, like when you have a problem. So I guess DoorDash, some of these apps have a guy that you can call, but for a lot of the scooter companies and and that stuff's kind of hurting the overall environment in my opinion. I mean, some of them got taken, like some of them got removed already. Like Uber Jump in LA was removed. They got rid of those. Some of the scooters they gotten rid of some of the scooters. So I don't know. I haven't seen how it is in San Francisco, but is there still a lot of that electric bike stuff going on over there, like the rideshare stuff? Do you see that over there?
Oh yeah. Yeah. And I know that some people will actually they don't own a bike, and so they'll rent a bike.
To do deliveries?
Yeah.
So they're gonna pay for a rental to do a delivery. How would you make money doing? Is there money to be made doing that? That's crazy.
Well, I mean, I would guess that there is. I mean, I don't know offhand what the rate is.
They're kind of expensive. I think they're like you're gonna pay like $3 to start the ride, and then like $1 every like hour or something like this.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, how on average, what's like if it's not too personal, what on average like for one delivery that you make on an app,
Mm-hmm.
how much are you getting paid for one average delivery if you had to average it out?
I really can't because it's I haven't figured out their formula for charging. Sometimes I'll get $15 to go 4 blocks with one item, and then other times I'll get $5 to go 20 blocks, and those I usually turn down. That is one advantage of them, is that you can turn them down, and I often turn down anything under $8. Once in a while, if like I'm going, maybe I'm running some personal errands in along with the being on DoorDash. Maybe I shouldn't tell them this, but what I'll do is if I'm like, let's say I'm going downtown to pick up my mail. I have a PO box for my mail, and I'm going downtown, and they only offer me $5 or $6. Well, I'm getting paid to go pick up my mail. That's how I look at it.
Sure.
But if I'm trying to make money, I'm not taking that. That's not making money.
Yeah, how does it compare to the small bicycle messenger company? Like do you on average, how much money do you get per delivery for one of those type of deliveries? Like where you're working for an actual.
Yeah. Well, I actually started getting. I got paid when I was at Specialty and by the hour. So it was. I was making more from a small company. I think I was up to about $17 an hour, and that would be better most of the time than DoorDash.
Yeah, I would imagine so.
Yeah, I mean, once in a while, I'd get pretty lucky and make 20 or even 30 an hour on DoorDash, but usually it's less than 20.
Well, I'm glad to know that there's still some money left out there for bike messengers, that that you can still ride your bike and get paid.
Yeah.
That's always good to know, because a lot of other things are going away, so I'm glad that as a culture that still exists. Down here, there isn't that as much bicycle messenger work, obviously, because LA is so big. It would be very difficult. So most of these delivery dudes are doing it in their cars, and they're going to picking up in their car, driving somewhere. Everything down here is going to be 2-3 miles away at least, at the very least. So nothing is 20 San Francisco blocks is like 20 SF blocks is like 3 or 4 blocks here, easily. Like these are like really stretched out like distances compared to the Bay Area. But this is where I think a lot of people are against electric bikes and motorized bikes for this reason, but I feel like it could really work for these longer distances to deliver stuff. But what other kind of insights do you have for us as a bike messenger, as an old school bike messenger for some of us? I know you had a few other topics you kind of wanted to get into.
Yeah, one of the things I really appreciate about the younger messengers is that they have a real respect for us OGs. And I really appreciate that. A shout out to all you rookies and young guys. And I think it's more intuitive. And so I'd like to kind of tell them, yeah, I appreciate the respect and the affection. And want to say, I think, offer some theories as to why that's there. And I think it was in the 70s. Now it is a little before my experience, but I think it was in the 70s when bike messengers went from the Western Union messenger who rode a company bike, wore a company uniform that looked kind of official. You may have seen those, photographs.
Yeah, I've seen a few of those.
Yeah. And we're usually paid by the hour, so that they didn't, and having one speed company bikes that they weren't personally as familiar with, they were kind of like just not a daring or as fast as the messengers would come up in the 70s. That's when you got more companies hiring messengers to ride their own bikes, which was kind of a little bit exploitive in the sense that we would have to take care of them.
Right.
But it was also a bike that, as you're dealing with more traffic, which is what we've been dealing with, through the years, there's always been an increase of traffic, except for, of course, during COVID. But for the most part, you're getting more and more traffic. And I really wanted to be on my bike for safety's sake, and because we were paid often by commission, then I could go faster on my bike.
No, that's interesting because, yes, if they provide a bike, that's good because, well, the cost of the bike and the maintenance.
Mm-hmm.
But the downside is the bike probably sucks, and it's not a bike you want to ride. So you want to have your own bike,
Yeah.
a faster bike.
Yeah.
So you think that's what made guys faster? Was the whole move away from that?
Yeah, and it kind of attracted somebody who was not quite into the cookie cutter approach to the job. It
Right.
allowed for more resourcefulness and independence, and so that started in the 70s. When I started in '82, well, I've always had my own bike. I've never had a company bike, and what that meant was, but with us riding faster for commission work, and for us having a bicycle that we were more familiar with personally, we were a little bit more daring, because I wouldn't be daring with an unfamiliar bike.
Right.
So this led to we wouldn't be stopping at red lights all the time. And
so if you don't mind me asking, like, what kind of rider are you? Like, in general.
I ride according to conditions, and I feel that that it's for my safety. I often have to run red lights. I know of a couple of occasions where if I had not run the red light, the car behind me and it was going to hurt me very badly.
Oh yeah, of course.
And so on that, we were breaking the traffic laws more. I want to say right now, I am not endorsing that for anybody, whether they're a messenger or not. You have to ride your own, what's safest for you. And I'm not going to tell you how that is, except that the traffic laws are made for 1-ton vehicles that are able to accelerate to a mile a minute in a matter of seconds. and occasionally do, maybe not on city streets, but still to very dangerous speeds very quickly. And those laws are made for them. And so I feel that for me personally, the best way for me to adapt is to not obey those laws, to ride according to the conditions that I am faced with at that moment. Again, I'm not suggesting, and certainly I would suggest that kids start by obeying the law, and then
Yeah, of course.
adapting your own, what you feel is safest for you and enjoyable for you.
That's why like if you look at streets and you look at pedestrians, there's really no place for a bicycle on the sidewalk. Like they tell, like if you ride on the sidewalk, the pedestrians will yell at you, "Hey, get off the sidewalk! What are you doing? Are you crazy?" And if you ride on the street, I'm sure you've gotten the, "What are you doing riding your bike on the street? Are you crazy?" Like you got nowhere to go.
Yeah, I am crazy, but what's your point?
Well, like you were saying, the laws are not designed for a bicycle or any medium speed moving vehicle, right? It's either pedestrian or a large multi-ton vehicle.
Yeah.
And that causes some serious issues where, especially with starting and stopping, where for a car that can start and stop very quickly, sure, it makes sense to stop at every single stop sign. But there should be a law allowing for a bicycle to be able to roll a stop if the conditions are met. Similar how a vehicle can make a right turn on a red light if it can yield it. Right. Yeah. So we should be given that, because knowing how momentum works and how much effort it takes to start and to stop a bicycle, that it's obvious we should be able to do that. But I think in the Bay Area, some of the laws are being changed to allow for some of this, right? I mean, down here, definitely not.
Well, actually, I think in the 90s, Idaho passed what has become known in some circles as the Idaho stop. You're allowed to approach a stop sign, or I don't know about a stop light, but a stop sign. I think I'll have to double check, but I think as long as you do it safely, then you can go through.
Right.
And I think one reason was because Idaho is a rather rural state with not that many cars.
Yeah, metropolitan city is a lot different from a rural countryside, right? So
yeah,
in the city, how do we deal with that? I think it still applies though, because like you said, sometimes it's dangerous to stop, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes it's too dangerous to ride on the street. Like there are some streets that are just, the traffic is way too close to the side of the sidewalk, and you've got to get on the sidewalk in order to avoid being hit. There's a lot of streets like this. I've been riding a bike my whole life, and there's been plenty of times where I have to get on the sidewalk. So we should also be allowed some leeway based on the conditions of the road, right?
Yeah.
And of course, there are some sidewalks that you shouldn't ride on. They're like, for example, like places where it's pedestrian only, like on the beach, like certain boardwalks, certain like really dense like walking areas like Hollywood and stuff. Bikers shouldn't be allowed on those sidewalks because, well, you can injure someone. There's just it's too dense.
I'm generally against sidewalk riding. I say generally, specifically if and when I do it, and I think everybody should have this attitude, is just go slow, and that means if something happens, you can stop quickly. Because you're going slow, you'll probably hear the pedestrians complain about you a little more because you're going slow and
no headphones, right? I make it a thing to say that you shouldn't ride with earphones or headphones on, because you use your ears to navigate, right? But more than often I go out and I see a lot of people even just jogging, or riding their bike with earphones on, and that kind of makes me worried. I'm afraid that these people might get hit by a car or something because they're not aware of their surroundings, right?
Yeah. And my attitude, as far as that goes with bicycling, is so enjoyable that do I really have to have music all the time? I mean, and if I do, then it should be, on the handlebars.
Yeah, a speaker, right? Like a little speaker on your bike. I think that works much better. It's safer, yeah. And it's the same thing with, sometimes I go out for a mountain bike ride, Sutro Forest in San Francisco, or down here we go to Turnbull Canyon, and there's guys on their mountain bike, and they just got the speaker blasting, just blah, 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 like whatever kind of music they like. And I'm like, dude, like, we came up to the mountain, like
for nature.
Enjoy the mountain. Why are you blasting AC/DC on the way down? You know?
Why are you bringing the city out here? We're trying to get away.
Exactly. Yeah. So I find that interesting too, as far as music goes. But I like being obnoxious from time to time with my speaker, but only in the city, not in the mountain.
Yeah.
Out here, I like being obnoxious with my speaker, and plus, people can hear you coming.
Yeah.
It's kind of helpful, especially in the city. It is what it is.
Yeah. So the issue of traffic laws and messengers starting in the 70s to
here, let me do you want a beer or anything? I'm gonna get a beer.
I'll stick with water for the moment.
Okay. Go ahead, tell us about the 70s and the issues there. I'm gonna step out for a second.
Okay. Can you open the door?
Yeah. We can open the door.
Ventilation.
Yeah, gotcha.
Yeah. So what happened in, I believe it was 1978, was due to pedestrian complaints. The city and county of San Francisco, USA, passed a law calling for messengers and only messengers to have a license plate put on the back of their bike. Usually it was on the back of the seat. Sometimes if you had a rack, on the back of the rack. So it was with large enough lettering, mentioning the name of your company and the number, your employee number. Thanks. To identify you so that you could not, or so that you could be identified in case of a hit and run, which unfortunately has happened in our profession. It's,
don't worry, I heard everything you said.
Okay. So this law was passed, and it was accompanied by the first major crackdown.
Can I ask real quick? Is this license plate different from the plate that's on the bikes? There's like a blue plate issued by the state of California on the down tube that like a little aluminum sticker.
It was different. It was supposed to be different in order to identify you as a messenger, for starters. The companies were allowed to make their own designs.
Oh, cool.
And what my company did was that it was supposed to be with large enough lettering to identify the messenger number. So what Specialized Messenger did was they gave us a clear, it's not plastic, but it's something like plastic, it was clear, and I had my number on there, 20, and SMS for Specialized Messenger Service. And a lot of companies got away with the company name would be small.
And that's because you don't want to be identified?
I guess so. I mean, in my case, in my company's case, I looked at it, and I'm sorry I forgot his name. He's a very funny guy. That we are talking about almost 40 years ago, and he it was this clear, piece of plastic or plexiglass, something like that, and then the number 20, which at any kind of distance, I mean, I'm talking about 10 feet,
Right.
you could only just see a clear piece of plexiglass, and you couldn't really make out the number. And I told him that, and he says, that's the idea. But I want to say on that point is that I've kept my own personal records, but the one I am most honored by is the number 0. That is the number of pedestrians I have hurt. I've bumped a couple. And one
That's interesting. That's good to know because, I just sorry to interrupt, but I want to mention real quick that I have a lot of messenger friends, and their number is not 0. You know what I mean?
Well, hopefully it's not.
I've seen
sending
a few
people to the hospital.
No. There's been a few accidents. I've seen a few accidents. Not anything like purposely like malicious or anything. Like first of all, bike messengers are the most non-malicious people ever. Like they're not out to really.
There are exceptions.
But from what I've seen, they're typically how can I say they are their own arrow. They're traveling in the way that takes them from A to B. Mm-hmm. And they are navigating in a way where they're not getting into other people's way. That's the beautiful thing about a bicycle is that you're riding in between the lines. Mm-hmm. You're not getting in the way for anyone. That to me is an exceptional rider. And, of course, you could see a pedestrian a mile away. You know where you're going to be riding, where you're more than likely going to hit somebody. But then you get not many, but I have seen these like cool guys who want to be really cool. And they want to have like near misses with everything they come close to. And they do that to pedestrians. They do it to vehicles. They do it to, right now there's a new trend called the Fixie Goon trend. And there's these kids doing wheelies and then getting like real up and close to an object. And then right before they're going to smack it, they swerve. And it's like, why are you doing that? Yeah. I still don't understand that one.
Yeah, I mean, we've had various styles.
How do you feel about that?
No, don't come close. How
do you feel about the younger generation?
I guess coming close is better than hitting somebody, but don't try to come close.
Yeah, don't do it purposely. Yeah. But I was gonna say, bike messenger, the culture has become very attractive for a lot of young individuals in recent, not just in recent years. I want to say since the
Back
90s.
Then,
it's been very attractive for a lot of cool kids, and there it still is. And there's a lot of people that join bicycle messenger work for maybe a year, maybe 2 years, just to be cool, to get the clout that comes from doing it. Right? They want the experience. They want the street knowledge. They want the plaque. If they were giving away a bike messenger plaque, they would get it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, so how do you feel about that side of the culture? Like, do you think there's a difference between a real bike messenger and the ones that do it just for the status? Like,
well, I would say there's kind of a. I mean, I think you can do both.
You can do both.
I enjoy this.
All right, how about this?
I feel. I'm part of. I'm a part of a heritage that, if you talk about not just about bicycling but about messengers, the Pony Express, the horse messengers. Under the Mongol Empire, who tied, you look at the continent of Asia, and add Europe to it. They tied, they made that trade routes, those trade routes happen because they provided the communication for that. I'm part of that. But messengers are mentioned in the Bible, and the word for messenger in the Bible is the same as the word for angel.
Cool, I didn't know that. I do think
So I'm proud of I'm honored to be in that. I consider it.
I'm glad to hear that.
I consider it a gift from God, and I'm grateful for that gift. And
That's how I feel about bicycle mechanics.
Yeah,
I feel that way about bicycle mechanics for a lot of reasons.
Yeah, you guys make it happen because
but
I'm all thumbs
here's one
once
reason.
I start fixing something.
Historically wise, if you look at vehicles in general, if you look at the bicycle mechanic, they're responsible for the first airplane. The Wright brothers were bicycle manufacturers before they were airplane manufacturers, and they applied their brazing skills and their welding skills to making airplanes. Chain drive. They had like sprockets and gears on the airplanes like from a bike.
Yeah.
And then you look at the motorcycle, the first Indian motorcycle, some of the oldest first moving vehicles in general, motorized vehicles, were motorized bicycles.
Yeah.
And then obviously the car came from the motorcycle, then they just expanded to four wheels. But basically all of transportation technology has come from the ability to enhance our own energy, our own bodies. But this is where I find the difference between motorized vehicles and human-powered vehicles. I think the beauty in the human-powered vehicle is that you're not using any other input besides your own. And so it's really just an enhancement of our own bodies, which is something very magnificent to me, because a bike can turn you into a cheetah, It's really amazing. A bike can turn you into a mule, and you can have a cargo bike that can carry lots of weight for very far distances. A bike can turn the human body into many different things. So to me, like how you believe that bike messengers are a gift from God to be able to work in that field, I feel the same way about being a bicycle mechanic. So I'm glad that there are people out there that are proud of what they do, and and want to make it a thing, a cultural thing. I feel that way about bicycle mechanic work. Unfortunately, bike mechanic work isn't as lavish or cool. It's not. It's just not looked at in the same way as being a bicycle messenger. But that's okay. I'm happy being the guy that fixes the stuff.
And all this quote unquote cool guys should appreciate. We'll be cooler if we appreciate the mechanics.
Yeah, I think you guys do, to be honest.
Oh, yeah.
Not only are bike messengers a big part of supporting the local bike shops, but the local bike shops, we look to the bike messengers to get the same kind of clout in reverse. Like, we sponsor races, we give away prizes, we do the alley cats, and so like, and this, I think it's a symbiosis. We should be working together. On a lot of different things to make things happen. So I've always tried to be part of the culture as much as I can in regards to cycling. It has, I think COVID, it helped the bike shop, but everything else cycling wise kind of took a big hit, like as far as people connecting and people wanting to get together and ride. I don't really see that much of it these days. I hope it returns,
Well, with the price of gas, it just might. I mean, one of the big booms for bicycling was in the 70s when we had our first real gas price crises. The OPEC Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries.
I read a little bit about that. Yes.
In 1973, they just turned off the spigot for a while, and I remember not only would there be these long lines of cars trying to get gas, and the gas was priced, I think it was reaching like $3 and $4 a gallon, which in those days would translate to like $12 or $15.
That's like $15 today.
Yeah.
Easy.
Yeah. So folks out there complaining about $6. This is what you would be getting if we get to that level again. And So I want to get back to talking about the issue of when we had these crackdowns.
Yeah,
Yeah. So
no worries.
um,
I'm gonna close it. Just outside noise.
in So in 1978, we had there was a crackdown. I don't really know the specifics. Just
Well, before, all right. So what, like crackdowns of what? Like,
Yeah.
like government crackdowns on bike messengers.
the police,
The police.
the
Police
city,
crackdowns.
city police. Yeah,
City
and
police.
yeah,
This is specifically in SF.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I want to hear about this.
Sure.
Yeah.
There was one in 1978. They required us to have these license plates. Now this was before I was a messenger, so I don't really have any specifics. I might not even get the year exactly right. And I think we had one in the early 80s, like 80 or 81. And then my first one was in 84. And so now I can tell you how this actually happened. We get away from this abstract word, and what was happening on the street was motorcycles, dirt bikes, because the hogs, actually in those days it was Kawasaki's. I think they went back to Harleys again, but the hogs were not able to catch us in most cases.
And this is in the San Francisco area.
Yeah.
So this is like Dirty Harry times, like, because there's a motorcycle scene in that movie where they got the I think they have a hog, and it says SFPD on the side.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's the motorcycle you're talking about.
No, those were the ones that couldn't
They could not
catch.
keep up.
Well, they could on occasion, but to really be getting us in the numbers that they wanted to get us, they needed dirt bikes.
Well, first of all,
so
I want to ask, why did they want to get you in the first place? Like, what's going on there?
In 84.
How you experienced it? Yeah.
Yeah, in 84, what happened was it was either a little girl or an old woman, or maybe a middle-aged woman. The accounts vary, but she got off the bus, and the bus was not close to the curb, so there was a messenger coming up, and the messenger hit this girl or woman, and a couple guys came off the bus, and they wanted to be heroes, and this guy was a little guy. He took off. I mean, he was going to get beaten up, so he took off. And so this sparked this anger of, a hit and run bike messenger. And so we all had to suffer.
That sucks.
Yeah. And I remember it was in December of 84, and I remember I was just riding along, and I saw a friend of mine, Kimberly Hood, and she's unfortunately passed away, but she was actually one of those veterans who was always friendly to me, and when I say friendly, I mean in a friendly manner.
Yeah.
She had a boyfriend. I was not him.
We're not interpreting it. Okay.
Yeah. So she was friendly. She was a real member of the community, and we have to give a shout out to the women of our profession, because they have to have more guts.
Yeah,
they have to. They put up with a lot of crap that. Guys give me drivers give me verbal stuff, but when I get off the bike and they see that I'm over 6 feet tall,
it helps.
They just start shouting at me, and then they drive away. A couple of them did have some guts, but for the most part, they only get their guts when it's a woman or a little guy. But
or a little guy.
But
like me.
Yeah, you're a little bit stocky, but I wouldn't want to press anything with you. But especially with the women, and Kimberly was one of those brave, solid gravy dog messengers, and she told me, she said, "Have you heard about the crackdown?" And I said, "No, what crackdown?" And she went to tell me, and she says, it's looking worse than 78, or she told me worse than the previous one, or a previous one, and she said all the dirt this whole division of the San Francisco police who went on dirt bikes, the same kind of bikes you might see, off-road.
Right,
or
right.
rather, when I say bike, I mean motorcycle, off-road motorcycles, maneuverable enough to catch us, and
Right.
much faster. And so I had actually gotten a ticket the week before this crackdown started. And this crackdown...
So real quick. So just so I get a mental picture of this whole thing.
Mm.
So she's telling you, have you heard of the crackdown, right?
Yeah.
And she's giving you the details of this crackdown. And so you're saying that, so is it just you start seeing a lot of these vehicles all over town?
Just the financial district.
Just the financial district.
Yeah, downtown.
Downtown.
Yeah.
And so they're just everywhere.
Yeah, and
so what do they want? How are they trying to restrict you?
Well, they're just catching us breaking the law, or in some cases, they just pulled. I mentioned I had gotten a ticket the week before because I really busted a really fun move at 8th and Harrison. But I got caught. Anyway, but now what happened was I got pulled over for being in the Diamond Lane, which is bus and taxi only.
Mm.
Now, that's a gray area because according to the traffic code, the bicycle has to be as far to the right as practicable.
Right.
Or if it's one way, you can be to the left. I was on Geary, which is one way at the point. It's a very long street. Part of it's two way, but I was on the one way section of it.
Yeah, I know
I
that
was
section.
off. Yeah, I was off on the right, as far right as possible, and I heard a siren, and the guy, tells me to pull over, and I try to argue the point. I said, I'm as far to the right as practicable. And he says, that's not the law. And I know better than to argue that.
Yeah.
I've learned some things about dealing with the police. I have respect.
We all have.
I have respect for them, for the profession, but that doesn't mean I like all of them.
Yeah, on the field, it's different. Theoretically, what we consider the police is one thing, but when you're out and you're riding your bike, it's a whole different story,
Yeah.
So I 100% understand that. And I don't think that has changed very much in the past 30, 40 years.
Well, I'm going to address that issue, but the short answer to that is, at least in San Francisco, I think it has, and for the better for us. But we're getting ahead of the story.
Right. No, continue.
Yeah.
Continue.
So anyway, I got a ticket for riding in the Diamond Lane. So he gave me the ticket, and I remember saying, "Did you guys?" There were two of them, and I said, "Did you guys catch that guy who started this? The hit and run guy." At that time, I had only heard that he had done a hit and run. I knew who it was, but I wasn't going to give him up.
Oh, you had some gossip on that? You knew?
Yeah. But what I had not heard was the part about the two guys trying to beat him up. So I was very mad at him. To me, he was like not representing us. He hit and run a woman. Go get him. There's all of you. Go get him. And so anyway, they gave me the ticket. And then I think about a week later, they got me. I honestly thought I was going through a yellow. They said it had turned red. So I got a running a red light ticket. And the guy said, if I catch you again, you're going to jail.
Right. Yeah.
And
I now I'm starting to feel this crackdown now. I'm getting a sense of what was going on. So that's good.
Yeah. And so that was my second ticket of the crackdown. Plus I still had a previous one. And to make a long story short, it fizzled or faded as December went on. Oh, by the way, it was 1984, a little Orwellian thing there.
Yeah, no, 1980. That's funny.
Yeah. And then I think in the first week of 85, in January, the first week or two of 85, I got another ticket. So I had 4 tickets that I had to deal with. So I went to night court, and the judge was.
Wait, what is night court? What is that?
Well, you just take, they hold court during night.
Really?
Yeah, yeah.
I didn't even know that was a thing.
That's a lot of cities do it. They probably do it here.
Huh.
So if you get a ticket, my attitude was, I'm not going to lose time on this. I'm not going to give up work time on this. I'm going to go to night court. And I went to night court. I still remember Judge George Colbert. The man should have been on the Supreme Court of the United States of America. Shout out to Judge Colbert. He was always fair with me. He was, because I would get a lot of tickets in the 80s and 90s. And but
I'm sure.
I took these 4 to him.
You're working the streets.
Yeah. And just because I asked for night court, I didn't get to pick the judge. I only got to pick the time.
Right.
But fortunately, I got Judge Colbert, who was a fair man. He often walked to work. I would say, "Hi, Judge," but he lived fairly close by in the Western Addition. He often walked to work in the South of Market, 850 Bryant. So I think he had. There was a rumor that his daughter was a messenger for a while. And he, so I think he got a little respect for cycling. I just picked that up. I don't know if he really felt that way or what, but anyway, he got these 4 tickets. Now, and I pleaded not guilty to the ones I got in the crackdown on the basis of, well, I didn't even start. But I was ready to say I was in the diamond lane. I have a right to be in the diamond lane.
You had an argument ready to go.
And I did not run. I honestly feel that was a yellow light, not a red one. So I had arguments ready to go. But I pleaded guilty to the red lights, the one I got before the crackdown and the one I got after the crackdown. He reduced those 2, and he dismissed before I even had a chance to say anything. I pleaded not guilty, and he dismissed those.
Nice guy.
Fair guy.
Fair guy.
I do remember, since I would always go to him or go to night court and always get him, that one time he only knocked down $2 off the fine because he had been seeing me a little bit too much. And I think that was his way of saying, straighten up for a while. So I did for a while. I didn't get any tickets for a while, but I've gotten over 40 tickets. So we had this crackdown in 84.
So wait, so you said you had some tickets pre-crackdown, some during crackdown, some after. What was how did it dissolve, the crackdown? Like, how did it go away?
I think they just got tired of it. I mean, for one thing, it's December when you got a lot of drunk drivers. You do have property crimes.
So how long did it go on for, this crackdown?
it kind of disappeared around about the third week.
So about a month-long crackdown, let's call it that, just for the sake of rounding it off. Yeah.
Yeah. And also, the last week of the year is really slow. So we were on standby. So what are they going to do?
I feel that.
Yeah. So there was that crackdown.
So let me make a comment, if I could, on this whole thing, because I'm kind of I find something intriguing about this crackdown, and that is that one pedestrian bus rider person gets hit by a messenger.
Yeah.
And this causes an outrage, and the police are out to get messengers, and now there's a crackdown. But messengers get hit all the time by vehicles, purposefully, sometimes on accident. There's always hit and runs being committed on messengers. And there's never any kind of crackdown in reverse. There's never a let's find who's hurting these bike messengers crackdown. I've never seen anything like that. So I'm curious as to how maybe it's a perception of what a bike messenger is that caused the crackdown to happen, right?
Yeah.
Maybe they think you guys are a particular subset group of people that need to be corrected.
Yeah.
Right? There's this whole thing in society where people have to be corrected, right? Like, you're too free. You're doing things in a way that you have too much freedom. Like, what's going on here? You ran over this lady.
Yeah.
Crackdown.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, I would like to see it in reverse, because, to be honest, the life expectancy of a messenger is not very high, like
even after we retire.
Yeah. And then it's something that, you're a type of anomaly in a sort of way where most of the people that I know that are messengers are either deceased or, stuff has happened, and Taylor, he did an excellent documentary thing on this whole subject, and he presented to me all this information he collected over the past 20 years of messengers who had passed away, and he did a tribute to them at a bike race that we sponsored with the old Bike Shop Fusion Workshop, and he kind of opened my eyes to that aspect that yes, there is some glamour and some spectacle to the bike messenger life, but there is also there's also things that take away from you as a being, and when you join into being a bike messenger in the culture per se.
I think that's kind of it's the price you have to pay for that level of freedom and individuality. I don't want to be and there's a kind of a temptation for messengers to be kind of selfish and be too individualistic. And I found myself fighting that inside myself. I have to watch that. I think anybody, it's often associated with artists or people who are nonconformist in other ways.
That's the word, not nonconformist.
Yeah.
That's the word. Because when, honestly, I didn't live through those times. I don't know what the 70s look like. I don't know what the 80s look like. I know what the 90s look like a little bit. But it seems to me that the government and even local government, even the local governments in those days were very stiff, they weren't allowing certain aspects of people's expressions to occur. And that's maybe why San Francisco is known as the leading capital of the country for progressive mindsets and progressive thinking, and why a lot of change occurred through San Francisco. And maybe that's one of the maybe bike messengers is just one avenue of that type of change, right?
Yeah, I think we contributed a lot to bike culture in that regard.
Definitely.
Yeah, and I want to mention a couple more crackdowns. There was one, I wasn't there at the time, but we had a hangout place. It was a parking lot south of Market, and people would gather there after work, have a few beers.
Tell me where this place is. Give me a mental picture again.
Okay,
I wanna know this.
Harveys. Shout out to Harvey Woo. Thank you for everything, Harvey. I don't have time to itemize that gratitude.
No, that's awesome. So you guys are at Harvey's. You're chilling. You're hanging out with the boys.
Yeah. Harveys was an old school corner store where you could get credit and get your paycheck cashed, and there was an empty lot or parking lot nearby, and we would hang out there and socialize. And one time, a paddy wagon just pulled up, or it had to be it was probably 3 or 4. I was not there, but I did hear about it. Even made the papers. They cornered about 70 of us, arrested about 50 for various charges, public drunkenness.
That's a crackdown.
Yeah, because that meant that was worse than tickets or worse than being threatened with jail. People were arrested, and usually on little stuff.
So if I could ask, what was the trigger for this crackdown?
I never found out. Maybe they just didn't.
So it was just random event. Maybe you guys got too obnoxious in this little spot at Harvey's. Maybe
it's like nobody sees it. It's south of Market. It's an alley.
Somebody always sees. There's always somebody out there snitching. You know there is.
Yeah, snitching is one thing, but having the power to back it up with a complaint.
It only takes the right person to be bothered.
Yeah.
To make something like. But okay, so it came out of nowhere.
Yeah, and about 50 messengers were arrested, and I wish I could remember who said it, because it was such a great comment on this situation. He said, you corral 70 people and you only get 3 knives and 0 guns. You got the wrong 70 people.
That's so true.
Yeah.
That is 100% true.
Yeah.
You gather any other amount of 70 people in randomized America, you will get some stuff.
I bet a few techie billionaires. There's about 70 billionaires in San Francisco. Let's get them.
Let's see what's in their basement.
Yeah, let's see what they got. That was in the late 80s. Then we had another major one in 89. Now, 89 was an awesome year on so many respects. There was the Afghans threw out the Soviets from Afghanistan. Their country had been devastated.
That's before my time.
Yeah, but it's probably worse than what's happening to Ukraine, although Ukraine is not finished. But there was the Soviets had been evicted from Afghanistan in February of '89. Tiananmen Square.
In 89, who's president then?
George Bush,
senior,
first
right?
one, yeah. Senior.
Okay, got it.
And it was his first year. So in early June, within like 48 hours, Khomeini died. People were trampled to death at his funeral, and there was Tiananmen Square. All within about 48 hours, maybe 72. It was like back to back. Then also in June, Eastern Europe started getting their freedom from the Soviet Union. And it started with Poland in June.
And this is because I remember, if I'm not mistaken, after 89, I think it was like 92 that they got rid of the Warsaw Pact. That was like a thing between all of the the Eastern
Yeah, because
European nations.
the Soviet Union had fallen, and
Had fallen, so then they got rid of
they
the pact.
they were the boss of the Warsaw Pact.
Exactly. Yes.
So June, Khomeini and Tiananmen Square, and then later in June, Poland became free, and then within a few months, Hungary, Czechoslovakia, East Germany, Romania, and Bulgaria. I think I got them all.
That's very good.
Yeah, and the Berlin Wall came down. Physically brought
removed,
down. Yeah. Shout out to Mark Rowe, who he was a messenger who was over in Berlin at the time, and they gave him a sledgehammer, and he got his pieces in.
Cool. American?
Yeah.
Oh,
I mean, he was visiting, and he was in Berlin, and he said, "Do you want to take down the wall?" Sure. And September of '89, they started another crackdown. Now, the previous ones, we would fight it as individuals, as I did in court.
In court, yeah.
This time, we all got together, and we started meeting together and saying, what are we going to do about this? And one of the things was if we all go to court, we're going to jam up the courts. So there was that. And the other thing was Marcus Cook, who passed away in '96. He organized a riding demonstration where a bunch of us, I missed it, but I caught up with him later, and he told me about it. But what they did was they circled City Hall, and they said, I'm pretty sure he made this up, but anyway, that's what we were saying. I wasn't there, but messengers were saying, police harassment really sucks. We just want to make some bucks. And we were riding around City Hall, that whole block there. You're familiar with it?
Yeah, of course. I used to live right next to it.
Yeah. And then I think it was Marcus and maybe a few others went into City Hall and went to the mayor's office and demanded to meet with the mayor. And that was Art Agnos, who was
at the
mayor.
time.
Yeah. And Agnos agreed to have a meeting with us. He himself would not be at the meeting, but there would be major city officials.
Right.
And we found out what instigated this one was that Muni, the bus and streetcar service,
the rail,
and cable cars, the public transportation system, which in those days was having its own problems with safety, like jumping the curb and hitting people on at least one occasion, and other safety issues. They had snitched on us, and that's what set it off.
Huh.
So we were scheduled to have this meeting, and
how did they identify who's just by corralling everyone, or like?
No, again, they were doing the same thing. They would have these dirt bike cops go after us, get us for running red lights or for gray area violations.
Gotcha.
And
so it wasn't a roundup, but it was like a over time collection of people. I gotcha.
Yeah. And this time I did not get a ticket, but I did get to go to the meeting. And when I got to the meeting, there was a messenger there who had been at the meeting, who was there to to be at the meeting, and he told me later that all these other officials were saying, "Well, where are you guys? Come on, you wanted this meeting."
Right.
And he was feeling kind of on the spot, and he said, when he saw me, when he saw us come in, but he said when he saw me, he said he'd never seen anybody look so mad. And the funny thing about it is that I have this look of being mad that I wasn't really trying to be mad. I mean, I guess I was mad, but I wasn't really trying to look mad.
Right.
But
there's there's a saying for that now. Like girls on Instagram, they call it resting bitch face, where you're just like in rest mode. Somehow you give off the impression that you're upset about a particular something, even though you're really not. They call it resting bitch face. There's a new word for it now.
I think they have to modify it because none of us were bitches that day. None of us. As he said he'd never seen anybody look so mad, but he was also relieved to see there was about 5 or 6 more of us, plus him. His name is Michael. I haven't seen him in almost about 30 years.
Wow.
And he had one of these foot-long Hungarian last names that I can't read. But shout out, Michael, if you can.
Shout out.
If you're out there. And, and we got in there, and the first thing they told us was that they called off the crackdown.
So there is somebody mandating the crackdown. So it isn't just a phenomenon of like of feelings manifesting. It's some person.
Police are ordered to
do that. So there's an order. So there's a political motivation for it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and as I said, it was Muni. It was Muni's idea, and Muni's safety record in those days was not too good.
Maybe they were just trying to dislodge some blame and put it on someone else.
Well, yeah, that's what when it was my turn to speak, I looked right at the Muni representatives, and I will say their union did not approve of this. Their union did not show up at that meeting to oppose us. So shout out to local 250A, San Francisco Muni drivers. But Muni had their Muni officials there.
Yeah.
And there were 2 of them. And I said, that we object to. I've always taken the attitude that if we're doing our job and a cop shows up and catches us, that's the breaks.
Yeah.
Yeah. But for them to devote all these taxpayer resources to going after people who you only 3 out of 70 of us are carrying knives, and none of us have guns. To devote these resources to us.
Yeah, that's unreasonable.
That's what we were objecting to. And then I looked at these 2 Muni officials, and I said, and we are especially disappointed that this idea came from the public transit agency whose safety record is not so good itself. And these 2 Muni officers, they looked about this tall. They just kind of shrunk into their heads, just kept getting deeper into their necks.
Sometimes, it's funny to say, but sometimes government makes these funny moves and they don't think anything's gonna come from it. They don't expect anything from it, and then there's a big thing that comes from it, and they're like, oh shit, we didn't expect this. What do we do now?
Yeah. And there was another one in the early 90s. I don't think it was as virulent as the one in the 80s. Now, that's a slightly biased opinion because they didn't get me. I mean, as I say, I often got tickets well into the early 2000s, and I've gotten over 40 of them. But And I paid them all off. You know.
So they didn't get you, but what did this crackdown consist of? Like,
again, it was motorcycle cops. This time we demonstrated, and I did attend the demonstration at the Hall of Justice, or the Hall of Injustice.
hey, just so you know, Rossi sharing the podcast,
Mm-hmm.
and so is the Chief Lunes. Shout out Chief
Okay.
Lunes,
Thanks,
Los Angeles
fellas.
Bike Messenger group.
Hope I'm not boring you.
Yeah, and then my bro says he saw you yesterday in downtown.
Okay.
He saw you rolling on your somewhere around here. So yeah, so we got some messages coming in.
Well, thanks.
Anyways, continue. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
yeah. But that was the last major one. I mean, there were some. We would hear like that one cop would park at a certain place and in the financial, and he would get every bike messenger that went by. But as far as an organized police division devoted to going after us, I think early 90s was the last one. And
this is the one that you're telling about now, right? This is the last time you saw an organized crackdown.
yeah. I
Interesting.
mean, yeah.
And
80,
what year is this specifically? If you don't mind me asking, like for this
it
last
was
crackdown.
early 90s.
Early 90s.
Yeah, yeah. The 89 one. And I want to get back to that one because what happened, that was in September of 89.
Mm-hmm.
What happened on October 17th, 1989?
October 17th, 1989.
The Giants and the A's were playing the third game of the World Series and
Sorry, I don't follow sports.
earthquake.
The earthquake.
The earthquake.
Oh, that's right.
And the earthquake shut down the Bay Bridge for 6 weeks.
That's true. Yeah.
Which meant that if you wanted to get something from San Francisco to Oakland,
you had to send a bike dude over.
you could no longer give it to a car. Now, some of us had been doing getting on BART and going to Oakland, or other.
So the BART was still operational, even though it's
BART,
underwater.
Yeah, there was.
That kind of that's always kind of been a sketchy thing for me. Like, how's that thing going into the water? Like, that's scary.
It's one hell of a tunnel.
I know, right?
And
It survived the earthquake.
Yeah. And so, then San Francisco really needed us when that earthquake happened, because for 6 weeks we were getting stuff over to not just Oakland, but everywhere in the East Bay.
Everywhere.
Yeah. And we had been doing this in the previous years, but we were doing it only on a small scale.
Right. And so you saw a surge of demand.
Yeah. And one of the things is we proved that most of the time we are faster getting to Oakland than a car. But for some reason, and maybe, for some reason, we didn't get it, even though we proved that we were faster getting to Oakland and even some other East Bay cities, we never quite got that business that we had gotten during that earthquake. They gave it a lot of it back to drivers. I remember drivers saying, "Yeah, you guys are faster for this distance."
For that type of delivery.
Yeah,
of course. And then I think that's just like an internal bias that humans have. Like, we're so used to doing things a certain way that we want to continue to do things the same way. And even though a new system is introduced that's more efficient, we tend to look away from it just because we're so used to the same old thing. We're creatures of habit, right?
And a bias toward technology and away from human power.
Yeah. That's also very true. Like, the more we want things to be easier, not because a human does it, but because a machine is doing it for us. And it's like, no, sometimes it's easier if a human does it.
Yeah.
But I understand what you're saying. But back to the story. Tell us.
Yeah. So so the earthquake came and we stepped up and You know, the community really served the
And
economy of
this
this
is post
city.
the 1989 crackdown, right? This is
Yeah,
after.
September was the crackdown.
Right.
September '89 was the crackdown. The October was the earthquake, and
That was a time to live in then. If you were in San Francisco, that was
Yeah.
a lot of activity, a lot of things going down for
Yeah.
bicycles.
yeah,
That's very interesting.
the thing.
And what year was the last? You mentioned that there was the last like actual
Last major one.
crackdown.
Yeah.
What year was that?
I think it was 91 or 92.
Okay, so a few years later.
Yeah. Okay. I don't think it was 92 because I'm remembering that it was in fall, and I was out of town in the fall of 92. I was out of. Okay, so I'm going to guess 93. And so, oh yeah, I was saying that we had been in the years before, we had been expanding our territory. We were most bike companies, they have what's called a shortboard and a longboard. Shortboard would be Financial District, Union Square, North Beach,
Downtown metropolitan area.
Downtown, and then you might call the longboard the greater downtown, out to Van Ness, Civic Center, into the Mission, farther into South of Market.
Okay, the outskirts.
Yeah, but still pretty much the northeast corner of the city. But a lot of us, so that was shortboard was real close downtown, and then the greater downtown for the longboard. Well, one company, Speedway.
You rocking the shirt?
Yeah.
I see it.
Yeah,
Oh,
and I.
It shows the back of the shirt. Shows the back of the shirt.
Yeah, get up here. Now, this I did put on myself. They wouldn't let me do it while I was working, but
Of course.
but here it is.
Oh snaps!
Yeah, and that 97 was my number, and
So you had the shirt made recently?
I had the work done on it
In recent times.
Yeah. I had this shirt for over 20 years, but so what I do is when I wash it, it's inside out, so the lettering is preserved. It's getting a little cracked here and there.
That's cool. Yeah.
What was happening was at Speedway, the shortboard was the greater downtown area. Their walking board was the walking messengers at Speedway was the smaller downtown area.
Right.
And their longboard, we're talking about bicycles,
Yes.
was the same as was getting bigger and bigger, going out. I was not working at Speedway at the time, but I was working at U.S. Messenger, and that was the biggest. It was one of the big three. There was Aero Messenger, Aero Messenger, U.S. Messenger, and Western Messenger. Those were the three big fleets of cyclists. And I don't know about Aero, and I don't think Western was really expanding their territory. Maybe. I had heard sometimes that Aero Messengers might occasionally go far, but at U.S. we were really trying to push for getting throughout the city and getting beyond the city.
So this is like the great expansion in terms of messenger historical.
Our territory.
So this is a time of, and what year is this?
This was starting in the 80s.
Okay, gotcha.
And so. We're and I remember the first time I went out of town. I was at U.S. Messenger, and I kept pushing. I was getting long tags, and I kept pushing for get me farther,
Right.
and finally they sent me to Brisbane, which is
It's pretty
just
far. Yeah.
yeah, it's just past Candlestick. It's a separate city. It's outside of the city limits of San Francisco. They sent me to Brisbane, and had a lot of fun riding out there, because if you hit the right rhythm riding on Bayshore Boulevard.
Yeah, I've ridden my bike down all the way to Brisbane on Bayshore.
Yeah. You know how you
Yeah,
can really make a good time and hit the lights right and not stop, you know?
I rode all the way down to Brisbane. There's like a jump track, like a dirt jump ramps that are in some park in Brisbane. Like it's like a sandy, like near the water, kind of near the bay thing.
Yeah.
And I had a lot of fun riding my bike down there. It is a very cool, stretched out road that has like some climbs, but some cool descents that makes it really fun for me, at least. I don't know, at least on Bayshore, that's what but the traffic is a little heavy there. Just the cars are moving fast as shit down there.
Yeah. So anyway, I did a tag to Brisbane, came back, and I came in after work, and this guy, Alan, who was a black guy, and a guy named Mike, who was Salvadoran. And Alan said, I heard somebody went to Brisbane today. And Mike points to me and says, "This white boy." And, eventually, and I would start going, so that proved that we could go far and fast. And, we were expanding our territory.
You consider yourself a pioneer of distance as far as bike messenger work goes?
There was a lot of us, a pioneer, yes, but
don't be modest. Just
okay,
like you were a guy. You went far. You went fast.
I went far, sure. Nobody will believe me today that I went fast, but back in those days when I was younger, sure. But yeah, there were, the other companies were expanding their longboards, and I remember when I went to work at a company, he said the guy's his name was Harry, but I can't remember his last name. Anyway, he said, "Okay, Howard, you can work here, but I don't want you going to Oakland or outside of the city." Because I got drivers up the ass, and I was actually I had a falling out with my previous employer, so I was kind of like, I need some work here. So, okay. About 2 weeks after I got hired on there, they said, by the way, can you do this Hayward?
Hayward, now that's far.
Yeah. I mean, it's all on BART.
Of course it is. Yeah, there's no way to get across the bay. For people that don't understand what we're talking about, and because there's a lot of Angelinos listening to this right now, but basically, earlier we mentioned the Muni, and that's sort of like the metro rail system, which you wrote today, right? That's like the over-the-top metro rail system, except all of it is connected here. There is no BART here. There is no super fast speedway.
It's not as fast as BART, but the metro covers a similar distance.
But it's just not the fast underwater cool BART thing that we have over there. But down here, Metro MTA is like Muni, and then so that's what's able to get people in the Bay Area across the water, because in case people don't know, San Francisco, Daly City, and anything below that is all in a peninsula. And it's surrounded by water, so the only way to get across is if you're driving and you have to drive across one of the bridges. If you're going to Sausalito, Marin County, you drive over the Golden Gate Bridge. If you're going to the Bay Area, if you're going to Oakland, the East Bay, and Berkeley, you have to drive over the Bay Bridge. So those bridges during the day, it's like full-on traffic. Like, it's impossible to get through. It's like it's hectic every single day, right? In the morning. Yeah. So that's why you said earlier that bike messengers were able to get stuff across during the times when the Bay Bridge was closed,
Yeah.
because the BART operates underwater, which is very interesting because it's a subterranean tunnel and it goes underneath the water across to the other side, which is still very cool to me. I still am like kind of bewildered by that.
Yeah.
But in case you guys are wondering how travel works in the Bay Area, that's how it works. Just for our Los Angeles listeners,
Sure. I would say that the metro is comparable to BART in distance, but more like Muni in speed.
In speed, yeah. That's right. Yeah. And there's some underground sections of the but there's also underground sections of Muni, right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of the same thing as Muni, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And we use the same cards. Well, not the same card, but like a very similar. Like in the Bay Area, you have a Clipper card,
Right.
and it's like a blue card, and you use it to tap. Down here, we have a tap card.
Right.
Same bullshit, different system, but same fucking thing.
Yeah.
It costs reasonably the same price to get around.
Yeah.
But I'm glad you find your way down here pretty easily. You can see how it connects. Even though LA is so big, I'm lucky to be at the end of one of the exits, so that you can ride the train on the way down here. Otherwise, it would be very difficult to get into this area just because the South Bay is there is not much, like, in terms of like vehicle transportation, there isn't many highways that bring you down here, which is why I think the price of homes is more expensive out here, and why like it hasn't been quote unquote gentrified. Yeah, just because it's more difficult to get out to this side, as opposed to the rest of the city that already had this. This is why a lot of places kind of didn't want these railways built, is because they knew it would bring different transportation opportunities for other people. There are some people they didn't want in their neighborhoods, like Venice Beach, Santa Monica, Culver City. We have a brand new rail line. Maybe you saw it on the way down here. It's called the Expo line, and it's brand new. It's been built in the last like 2-3 years, and it goes now from downtown to the beach to Santa Monica. So that's never been a thing that we've. If you wanted to go to Santa Monica on a bike, it was like a 40-mile expedition. Like no matter which way you picked, it would take you a while to get there. But I'm not sure how familiar you are with Los Angeles. But if you're you're down here for a little bit, if you want to go ride some bikes, let me know. We can jump on some bikes. I'll show you some cool stuff around here. I mean, I grew up down here, so I know this area.
Well, I'll have to say next time, because I'm leaving Friday morning. However, I hope there is a next time.
Yeah, absolutely.
For a long time, being raised in Northern California, I had that Los Angeles is evil attitude. Don Drysdale throwing beanballs at Willie Mays and Willie McCovey.
No.
The Lakers using all that money to beat the Warriors.
That's true, though.
The politics,
Well, let me just say that L.A., you can think of it in two sections. You can think of it kind of like you think of about the Bay Area as, a main city, and then East Bay. There's something similar like that's going around here, but except it's not separated by a body of water. Instead, it's just separated by distance. So on this side of the city, the northern area, we have like Culver City, Beverly Hills, Hollywood, North Hollywood, and like all the things that you don't like about LA, they kind of more reside on that side. And then you have the whole southeast LA area. The South Bay area, and then Long Beach, and like a lot of other stuff. All this stuff is probably unexplored to you, and it's probably like that's where you want to hang out. That's where all the bike people are at. That's we travel up to LA to do things, and then we go home. We go back down to go home, and it is quite a way. Like anyone traveling to downtown from here, it's quite a distance, it's like 20-30 miles up north, so it's not exactly super close. So these are the areas that I think you would find kind of cool. You would think some of these guys are very Bay Area like. There's certain areas that look exactly like the Mission District, certain areas that look exactly like places that you would probably recognize, and you'd be like, "Oh, this feels natural."
Well, I was on Alvarado Street, which is kind of like it's more like the Mission District in the '90s. But the Mission, we have all these shops and all this activity, and all this energy, and I really appreciated it. I mean, that's the northern part of the city.
Yeah.
Or
It's like an island
Yeah.
of down here up there. And the interesting thing about that is that in case you were not familiar with the demographics down here, but up north, Hispanics, particularly Mexican people, make up like a very low percentage of the whole city. I think something like 3 to 5%, like very low percentage of the entire city. And I looked it up myself. Yeah,
Wow.
and Hispanic people in general are very low numbers. Whereas down here,
Right.
like I think Hispanic people make up the majority of this city, like something like over 45%. You know,
Yeah.
like that's a huge number
Yeah.
for Hispanics, Latinos to occupy the LA area. So I think that's one of the biggest intrinsic differences between here and there.
Mm-hmm.
But next time you come around, you have some more time, I would say, come take a tour with us. We go ride bikes, and there's a lot of group rides. I know you're not on the internet per se, but if you send us a text message, I can hit you with there's
I have email.
There's organizations of group rides that we do down here. And there's a thing called midnightriders.com. If you just go on this website, midnightriders, RIDAZZ.com, you can find out everything there is to find out about bike culture in LA, whether it's critical mass, whether it's party rides, whether it's a bike race, and that, of course, we're heavily involved in sponsoring bike races, and we just recently did a crit race. Shout out to Ill and Sick. Shout out to Chief Lunes and LAUWC. We did a race recently in Torrance, which is down the street from here, and it was very cool. Lots of cool people came out. Unfortunately, the police raided the race as usual. They kind of stopped it short, so the women got to race, and everyone but the men's main category didn't get to complete that race, unfortunately. But it happens sometimes. The police are always out there trying to shut shit down. It's what they do. But next time pull up and we can definitely take a tour of the city. And a lot of the guys from the Bay Area that that are messengers today, like Rossi, the 415 King, and Taylor and all these guys, they come down here often and we cruise around. And a lot of us down here very often go up there and do some riding over there as well. So yeah, definitely. If I'm in San Francisco, definitely gonna hit you up so we can meet up.
Yeah. You talk about bike culture, and we made contributions. I think in the 90s, bike culture was, I don't want to say that it was at its height, because I want its height to be now, but I just feel that way. And I kind of feel, at least in the Bay Area, I'll speak for the Bay or about the Bay Area, I think that our bike culture, and now I'm talking about in general, not just messengers.
I think everywhere. I think in general, I think bike culture was a lot bigger in the early 90s than it is now. Only because it was more accepted as a form of transportation. There wasn't so much stigma behind it, it was just cool. You can tell, as a bike mechanic, I can tell you can tell what eras of cycling were good and which ones weren't just by looking at the bikes. Like if you look at a bike that was made in the 80s, it's really not that good. Those bikes are very heavy, produced with very mild steel. They were not very good. But when you look at a 90s bike, like an early 90s road bike or mountain bike, they were very good bikes. Like it means that people were very active in terms of cycling, and they really wanted the best in terms of what they could ride, Yeah. So I see
end of
that
the Cold War, so titanium was freed up from the defense industry,
and we started to get some of that in the bikes. And it was great. This is I love titanium bikes. That's my thing. I have a few myself, and I'm obsessed with those things. They're
I'll
pricey.
have to get me one someday.
They're pricey, but they're totally worth it.
Okay.
I could tell you that. I love them. But anyways, sorry to distract you from your point. But yes, I do agree that in the 90s, cycling was important. More so than it is today. But that doesn't mean that it can't become what it was. I think it's on its way. It's on its way. We just need to nudge it over a little. We need to help it.
Yeah.
Right.
$6 a gallon might
that might help it.
Might nudge it. Yeah. I mean, as I mentioned earlier, a lot of bike revival in the 70s because people did not want to pay what would now be the equivalent of $12 or $15. Now, as far as that culture in the 90s, that 90s revival, a lot of that did come from the messenger community. And there was always kind of this socioeconomic class difference between us and the commuters, who in San Francisco are usually represented by the San Francisco Bicycle Coalition.
And let me tell you now that this particular coalition is a tricky one. I like a lot of the things that they've done politically.
You're talking about down here?
No, I'm talking about up there.
Oh, okay.
The San Francisco Bicycle Coalition.
Yeah.
They've done a lot of things to help the bicycle community, maybe not so much in recent years. But in recent years, that organization has become highly politicized, and they've been doing very strange things that I don't necessarily agree with. So I'll just say that out loud, just so that people understand that I'm not 100% on board with everything that the SF Bicycle Coalition has done. The SFBC, specifically that coalition. But back to your point.
Yeah, there was always this kind of, I wouldn't even call it division, more like a separation or a difference, but it was a difference we accepted a lot more readily and understood, and and it was like a friendly rivalry.
In a way.
And I mean, both groups started. There were commuters and messengers involved in the start of Critical Mass. The first Critical Mass, September 1992. There were bike messengers who had participated in that first Critical Mass.
Sure.
And I always like to say that we sometimes we would a group of messengers would take over a Critical Mass. We'd decide where the ride would go.
You don't have to tell me. Trust me. Down here we have Critical Mass, and it's literally exactly the same thing. The average commuter organizational group, political group organizes Critical Mass, and then the cool guys, the bike messenger cool guys, they'll just be like, nah, we're going that way. This happens down here all the time. Trust me, it's happened down here for years. Although it's not as popular as it was. But it's still around.
Well, I mean, when I say we would direct the whole thing, there would just be a group of us, about sometimes less than 10 of us would be directing hundreds of people. And it was kind of fun. And it's not like they were sheep. It's like we came up with routes that they liked and they wanted to go on.
Yeah, of course.
We went to the Bayview. I think the first two Critical Masses to go to the Bayview were led by bike messengers. And you look at that on the map.
Right.
That's a long distance, and it's
But people don't all right, this is something that I've also noticed about Critical Mass and some of these East Bay Bike Ride Crew and San Francisco Bike Ride Crew, Bike Party Crew, or whatever they call themselves.
Bike Party.
Yeah, so they have the East Bay Bike Party, SF Bike Party. The one thing that I've noticed about most of these ride groups today is that they only want to ride in the metropolitan SF area. They don't want to. They don't want to go to Bayshore, Bayview. They don't want to go to Mission. They want to stay in
Yeah.
the city, Chinatown area, and a lot of people don't like. I've been on many of these rides when I used to live down there, maybe 5, 6 years ago, and to be honest, I didn't like any of those rides.
Mm.
Like the East Bay Bike Party was kind of cool, but
Mhm.
the SF Bike Party was dry and boring. Like it was just like, what's going on here? And I'm the kind of person that when I go on a bike party ride, like I go all out. Like I have a
Mhm.
tall bike, I have a music bike,
Mhm.
right? Like so, actually, if you look at this thing right here is an amplifier
Yeah.
for a party bike. So it's powered by a Ryobi drill battery, believe it or
Mhm.
not, and you plug in your speakers to it. You mount it on the bike somewhere. So I've been making these kind of contraptions for years now, and so I like when I go on a bike party ride, I want to be loud. You know, I want to
Mhm.
have cool music. I want people on tall bikes. I want people with cool lights in their wheels and stuff. You know, like I want it to be a party ride, right? Um, San Francisco bike party is such a dry ride. It's just like
Yeah.
very corny ride, to be honest.
Okay. I've never been. I've never been on except for the one time where I got off BART at Balboa Park in the southern part of the city, and it coincided with my ride from there to my home, so I went along with
Yeah,
it. But
that's the one. Yeah, they that's their route. They go down to Balboa.
uh-huh.
They start there, and then they ride up and into the city from there. Yeah, so that's
Okay.
the start point.
Yeah, yeah, that's what I remember is that the route diverged from where, I was kind of tired. It was Friday night, and I wanted to go home. So that's my only
And
experience.
maybe it has to do with the fact that the majority of commuters in the San Francisco area are no longer, how Rossi would put it, San Francisco natives. You know,
Mhm.
like San Francisco is a city that's made up of people coming and going. So maybe a lot of it has to do with that. That maybe commuters are a different organization, or you described it as a rival organization, simply because maybe they're people that are coming and going from the city, right?
A friendly rivalry. Well,
yeah.
in this, I mean, I wanted to maintain as a friendly rivalry, but it was a lot more friendly in the 90s.
I would say so, because today,
Yeah.
like, commuters can be kind of annoying. You know what I mean? Like, and I'm a commuter most of the.
Mhm.
Like, I'm not a bike messenger,
Right.
so I cannot be counted in the bike messenger group, right? So, who am I? I'm a bicycle mechanic. I ride to work. I ride from work to home. I go on party rides. I go shred mountains and stuff. So when I'm riding my bike on the street, I'm a commuter, right? But commuters annoy me. You know what I mean? It's like, yo, who are these dudes? Like, I don't know what to call these guys, but there's something else.
Yeah.
But these guys are like, these are the kind of dudes that where you're riding in the Panhandle. For people that don't know what the Panhandle is, it's a little strip of park that connects certain areas of the city. You're riding in the Panhandle, and there would be a guy who pulls up next to you on like a brand new bike, and he's just like, on your right or on your left, and like announces himself, turns on his blinker, goes up in front of you, passes you, gets in your way, has like pannier bags that are like hard to navigate around, doesn't go too fast but doesn't go too slow either. Like, I don't know, there's a new type of commuter. You know, I can't quite put my finger on like what it is or like how to describe them, but there's a new type of commuter, and they're doing something different.
Okay. Whenever they get on my nerves, I just say, well, at least they're not in a car.
That's very true. That's very
Especially
true.
if they're not riding well, they're not going to drive very well.
That's exactly my next point. Is that, all right? Maybe these people are applying their driving habits to the bicycle, as this is like a new phenomenon to them, right? Maybe they're applying some of these habits of driving into the bike, and maybe it's just taking a while for them to dissolve some of these bad habits. Let's call them bad habits, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, I wish that more people would ride a bike, because maybe their driving would get better. You know, maybe they would understand speed better, understand, navigation better, where they're going. They'll be more aware of their surroundings, who they're driving next to, how close are they to stuff, you know? I think it's very strange that someone can go from taking a test on paper to driving and they don't understand these fundamental like physical properties.
It's too easy to get a driver's license. Yeah. And I think that's our political economy, you know.
You know, it's getting, you know, right now in LA, something funny just happened. Actually, not LA, all of California. You don't need to go to the DMV to take a driver's physical test anymore. You can do it online now.
But don't you still have to drive a car?
No.
Not for your first one?
Not right now. Because of COVID and all the, you know,
that's an excuse.
Yeah, so, you know, of course it is.
An excuse to keep people in cars.
They want to keep people in cars, but also it's maybe costing them too much money to have to process these many people trying, you know, new drivers. So they're finding easier, cheaper ways to do that. And one of them is make them go online, you know, make them go on the website and sign up there and, you know.
I wish they'd find a way to, you know, if they want to save money is not have so many people getting driver's licenses. I mean,
but then you can't pay the tickets if you don't have a driver's license. Then
I paid my tickets. I was on a bike. I bet
that's the worst thing about a bike is you still get tickets, and you're not even driving.
I accept that. I think it's part of a price. You know, it keeps me honest.
Well, let me say this thing though, right here.
Yeah.
Riding a bicycle is a right. No one can take that away from you.
Yeah.
Driving is a privilege
that you have to earn. And too many people. Yeah, there's driver privilege, but they haven't earned it.
Nope, they haven't earned it. And to me, that's a big difference in like how we maneuver, how we transport. You know, the government taxes us so heavily for driving a vehicle. I was just telling you about this. I have to do an oil change. I have to do a smog check. I have to pay insurance, pay registration, pay all these different things, maintenance. You ride a bike, it's very freeing, you know. It's you just get on the bike and you go, you know. And yeah, maybe you get a flat tire. That's like the most frustrating thing that could happen, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Well, second to getting hit by a vehicle, but you know, I hope that never happens to anyone I know that rides bikes. Although I've been hit by a few vehicles in my lifetime, and I've broken a few mirrors and broken a few windshields, you know? And it just comes with the territory.
Yeah.
But I'm a little bit I grew up in L.A. I grew up in South L.A., where people don't give a fuck about bikes, you know? People down here drive like maniacs, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know how people get their license down here. It's incredible. If you go out here, you can feel the intensity of the negativity, the aggressiveness of the drivers that are down here. If you just ride your bike for like a few blocks. So growing up with that type of environment, it made me really like, I hate to say it, but I'm a driver. I drive a car, but I'm not against drivers, you know? But when I'm on a bike, it makes me feel a certain type of way when people are aggressive towards me. Mm-hmm. And some of us take defensive measures against that. Yeah. And I'm not going to advocate this type of behavior, of course, you know? But
it's understandable.
You can't deny that there's a subset group of people that take this matter into their own hands, you know? Yeah. And sometimes we smash stuff, you know? And that's just the way it goes. I'm not, like I said, I'm not going to advocate for that behavior, but you know, it happens, you know? and I've done it, and I'm not going to lie about it or make it less known. Like, it's just part of maybe the environment that you grew up riding a bike in, right? Yeah. So, yeah, I'll leave it at that. But, hey, man, it's been real fun. We've been at it for, like, almost 2.5 hours now. This is really awesome.
Well, can I maybe get a little
concise? Here, let me actually, before you... So, I know you wanted to leave a plug-in on your Substack, so I'll let you do that in a little bit. But also, finish getting precise about this.
Yeah.
I'm going to go use the restroom real quick, right?
Okay. Yeah, I wanted to talk about our contribution, the messenger contribution to the greater, the larger bike culture and community that, again, came off from the 80s and 90s. As I mentioned, we helped start Critical Mass. And some of us joined the San Francisco Bicycle Coalition, and are still members. I mentioned, what I really should mention is the Cycle Messenger World Championships. When I first became a bike messenger, I had two dreams. One was that there would be an international championship of bike messengers, and that there would be a union of bike messengers. Maybe I'll have to save the second one for another time, but because that's very complex, and although we made some very significant gains, we were not able to get a union we were not able to get a permanent union. But to talk about the championships, in 1993, the owners of some companies, bike messenger companies in Berlin, organized the first Cycle Messenger Championships. They called it the Cycle Messenger Championships. The next year it was changed to Cycle Messenger World Championships. And although they were organized by company owners, these company owners were very, they were more about bikes than about the money. And as a result, they did well in both categories. And they were able to finance the first Cycle Messenger World Championships in Berlin in '93. I was not able to attend that one. But from the start, San Francisco was contributing about 20 people from the community to each Cycle Messenger World Championships. We often call it the Worlds. I think that's what we called it back then, the Worlds. And I think people still call it that. So the first one, Berlin, '93, and there was a significant San Francisco turnout for that one. '94, it was in London. Again, a significant turnout, about 20 of us. The next year was in Toronto, and again, San Francisco had one of the largest contingents, maybe the largest one outside of Europe. One of the things that we noticed was that European messengers make good money. I mean, we could just see by the bikes they rode and the clothes they wore, and the restaurants they went to during during the championships.
Oh my God.
So that and that was, I think, a contribution to the effort to want to unionize. So in '95, we were in Toronto, and there was an open air meeting at the awards ceremony. After the awards were handed out for the various categories, it was put out for a voice vote as to where it would be held in '96. And by a voice vote, it was overwhelming for San Francisco. And a lot of that credit, the majority of that credit goes, again, I mentioned Marcus Cook for his work on the against the '89 crackdown. He also had helped organize support for San Francisco in '96. So by voice vote, San Francisco was chosen, or rather was supported, but the European company owners were a little bit gun shy about giving it to San Francisco. And I think that's part of that whole hippie image stereotype. It was also because there had been some organizational and financial troubles in Toronto. Now, as a social event, most people really enjoyed themselves. I did. But the European company owners who had started this, so they had a say in this, they had a meeting with us the next morning. And this time, instead of an open air meeting with everybody, it was inside an office, in a building, inside an office. And they voiced their reservations, and they felt that it should be held in New York. And part of that was that they had personal friendships and relations, business relations with New York. And
so if I could ask,
yeah,
what was New York's turnout as a because you said that San Francisco had numbers.
We outnumbered them heavily. And remember, New York was, it's a day's drive. It's a few days bike ride, and we outnumbered them. And we had 2 people who rode from the Bay Area to Toronto. So, we had them heavily outnumbered. We had the support of the other rank and file people, especially North America, Canada and the U.S., but also many European messengers, rank and file. Nevertheless, I feel if putting myself in the European company owner's position, we understood their concerns, but we felt that we should go ahead, and they said we came to a compromise where the decision would be made in December. Now that put a lot of pressure on us to go back to San Francisco and organize a world-class event from a city that only 7 years ago, well, actually counting the early 90s, probably only about 3 or 4 years ago, had been, persecuting us.
Right.
Boston had a similar problem, I think, in 2000. And so, we were like, you're not going to give us much time if we choose in December. And their response to that was, well, then why not just give it to New York? And I said, no, come on now. This is what the people want. The people at least should get this chance. So we agreed that we would wait until they would make the decision in December. So we were going back and we were going to the city saying we might get this next Labor Day weekend. And so city officials were kind of a little cross-eyed about that. But to make a long story short, we overcame that. And in December, and to give credit to the Berlin, especially the Berlin company owner, he came to the United States in December, went to New York, came to San Francisco, and he said, yeah, you guys have the right spirit. And that was his word. And so we got approved. There were even a couple people in San Francisco who felt that, oh no, we're going to blow it partly because we'd only had 8 months really, Labor Day weekend, 8 months to organize. And so whether we blew it by being inefficient or blew it by not having a decent chance, they were worried that we were going to blow it. But to make a long story short, we succeeded, and we started it with a critical mass, and a lot of people to this day believe it was the best one ever. I happen to believe that the one the next year in Barcelona in 1997 was better. But I'm a little biased on that one because that's where my daughter got started. I'll spare you all the details, but shout out to Momo. And so in '96, we organized the championships. It was very successful. It was financially successful, so that we were able to distribute money to bike charities, including overseas ones, and also Barcelona did the same thing. I don't know how other ones organized theirs, but Barcelona just made a profit and gave that money to a bicycling group in northern Africa.
Cool.
And that had a very positive effect on bike culture in general in San Francisco, and also in our relations with the city. And I remember one time, just a few months after the championships, I was running a red light, and at the last second, I saw a cop sitting on his bike diagonal from me. We used to call it kitty corner. And I thought, oh, well, I'm in the middle of the intersection. I better complete this. But as soon as he saw me, he did this. He went. For those of you old enough to remember Hogan's Heroes, Sergeant Schultz. He just turned his head right away. I see nothing. And I just kept riding. And I still did get a few tickets afterward, but
So you're saying that the negative image was turned around slightly by some of the success of these events.
yeah, modified, we might say.
Modified, yes.
Decreased. Yeah.
But not gone altogether.
It never will be. And as I say, maybe it shouldn't. Thanks for reminding me about the Substack. Before I mention that, do you have any more questions?
No, I mean that kind of like, gives me a good picture, a good image, mental image of kind of what it was like to be a messenger throughout the late 80s, early 90s. I am curious how you continued on riding bikes into the last 2 decades, like the 2000s and the 2010s. What kept you going on your bike throughout all those years, as opposed to, many other people don't really make it that long?
Well, it's enjoyable, and I've picked up a variety of part-time jobs that kind of help me get this balance that it gives me, interesting things to do in my life. I'm a substitute teacher.
Oh, cool.
I've worked in mosquito control using my bike. I've worked in a chocolate factory. Right now I'm a walking messenger as well as doing DoorDash. So I've worked in a bookstore. I've had lots of opportunities. And
so would you say, because the average bike messenger attitude is this hyper aggressive, like, I want to do everything all at once kind of attitude, and is that short lived? Is it better to maybe play things out in the longer run? Is it better to let things happen in their own time? It seems more like you're just kind of cruising now, like you're just letting things happen how they want to happen, kind of thing.
Yeah, I was until COVID. I mean, I did have, I was working at Specialty right up to COVID. Um, I mentioned,
I mean, even in your writing, like for
yeah,
example, like you may still be a bike messenger, you may still do deliveries, but
yeah,
are you more relaxed in how you manage the each even down to the each delivery? Like, are
yeah,
you like? Cause I know like, all right, people drive their cars, they get road rage, right?
yeah, yeah,
But people ride their bikes. Sometimes they get upset too,
yeah,
with the
yeah,
traffic and with all these things. Like,
yeah.
does that stuff affect you less now, or are you more like just kind of chill about all that stuff?
I think I am more chill because of the fact that I don't, I don't have to work full time. Um, I'm old enough to collect Social Security, so that is nice to know that I make rent.
Yeah, and you're lucky enough to collect it while it's still there. I mean, I'm
Yeah,
I'm afraid that when I reach the age where I can collect that, there's not gonna be nothing there for me.
it's yeah, and it's such a good thing. I mean, I remember when I started working. My first job was working as a farm laborer. I picked blueberries, picked squash, and a few other crops because we were, in Santa Cruz County, and the opportunity was there. And when I got my first check, I didn't know about deductions, and I said, "I'm paying taxes. I'm just a kid." My dad says, "You're working, you're paying taxes." But I also understood that I was paying Social Security, and my grandfather started getting it. I think the next year, um, and it was
So
a good
you saw
feeling.
it. You saw it in
Yeah,
action. Yeah.
yeah, it was a good feeling knowing that I was helping my grandfather, and and now I'm collecting money that my daughter is contributing to me. So
That's interesting because I'm sure you realize that today,
so I
especially in
excuse me. So I
uh,
do hope it lasts long enough for her and you.
I do too as
Yeah.
well. But I was saying that especially in San Francisco, the anti-government sentiment is like very strong right now, right? So like I I've noticed that right now, even considering paying taxes or these simple civilian things that we've known for so long are now looked at in a different light, right? Now everything that the system does, the system is now oppressive, and there's whole classes of oppression now, and there's like this whole thing where like no one wants to contribute or participate in this anymore, and everyone thinks that they deserve more than they have, and it's a strange world we live in today. So I do hope that things kind of take root again in the what's considered like American values, right?
Hmm.
I do hope that things go back to that. I hope that bikes are not demonized the way that they have been for so long. I hope that, especially if you're from LA, you know that if you ride a bike in LA, you're instantly judged as a poor person.
Yeah.
Like
That's bad.
yeah, yeah. Like if like you don't have a car, why? Are you
Yeah.
poor? Like the only people that ride bikes down here are like crackheads and like tweakers and stuff like this. Like
Yeah,
according
yeah.
to everyone else.
Yeah.
You could spend $7,000 on an e-bike. When the police pull you over, it's still just a bike to them. They're still just gonna either confiscate it or arrest you or give you a ticket or whatever they're gonna do. So I really hope that this stigma goes away. I hope that
Yeah.
we can get to a point where bikes are considered a good thing for the
Yeah.
environment, for people.
It's the right way to transport yourself. I understand that people have to drive, especially in LA, and in so many other parts of the country. I understand that, and we have to move our economy and our culture away from that.
Yeah, think about this for a second. Did you know that in LA specifically, I think like 70% of all transportation that occurs in a vehicle is within 5 miles.
Yeah.
So like you can get rid of the usage of vehicles for
Yeah.
like 60% at least,
Yeah.
just by using a bike within 5 miles, you know. And using, you know, vehicles are necessary when transporting large objects or going further distances. That's totally acceptable. I accept that, you know.
Yeah.
I use a vehicle when I need to go do certain things, but within 5 miles, you know, going around the corner like to get like cigarettes or a beer or something, like don't drive over there, you know. Just ride your bike and get it real quick,
Or
like,
walk.
or walk. Yeah. I hate walking though. That's just me though.
Okay.
I gotta be on some kind of wheeled object, whether it's a skateboard or a bicycle, something.
Yeah.
That's just me though.
Sure.
But yeah, dude,
Yeah.
it was this lovely conversation. If you want, plug in your Substack.
Yeah.
Let us know.
Okay. I participate in Substack, which is an online writers forum. I write about a variety of things. I just finished one about miner's lettuce, which is a native plant that is edible and a very cool plant. That's why I wrote about
What's it called?
miner's lettuce.
Oh,
And I think it's native to this area.
interesting. Yeah, I'm always on the hunt for native plants because as you can see to my right here, where I have all these herbivorous lizards, and
I think they'd like that.
I'm looking
It's,
always.
it's
for
native,
them,
and
yeah.
they're native. I mean,
Some of them are native, yeah.
yeah.
So that'd be very cool, yeah.
Yeah.
So what's the link that I can like send people right now? So like, is there a?
Well, what they need to do is send me their email. So let me give you my email.
Yeah, give us your email.
Yeah. It's Howard Isaac Williams at yahoo.com. And I'll spell that out. HOWARDISAACWILLIAMS at yahoo.com. You send me an email asking to get on my Substack, and in addition to the recent one about miner's lettuce, I also write about daylight savings time. I have one about the crackdown. We talked about the 1984 one. I wrote about that. I wrote about our first toy drive, which maybe next time we can talk about. Bike Messenger toy drive.
I have your email here in the chat. So for anyone listening, just go in the chat. If you're on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, wherever, just hit the chat and you'll see it there. Click on the link, and then you'll get on his email list.
Yeah, subscriptions are free if you mention this podcast.
Cool.
If you mention Rick and DJ Occult, just mention that you saw this show, and you will get a free subscription. I'm going to close by just giving you some numbers. 191. That is the most weight I have carried on a bike for a delivery.
Cool.
30. That is the number of cities I have delivered to inside the Bay Area. 5. That is the number of counties that I delivered to in one day. That was a challenge, and it took me a little while, but I made it. And 6 is the total number of counties I've done in my career. But that most important one is the 0. That's the number of pedestrians I have hurt. As I say, I've bumped a couple, but nobody got hurt, and I'm grateful for that. And that's the one I want everybody to go for. And if you've already got 1 or 2, just keep it. That makes 0 for the future.
Yeah. Awesome. Hey, how about the inverse? How many times have you been hit on your bicycle?
I can't really count, and I mean, most of them were also bumps, so they're getting bumped by a ton of steel is a little bit different than 200 pounds of flesh and bone. My worst accident was hitting a car because my brakes failed me going down Liberty Hill in San Francisco. Liberty Hill and I have a relationship. Anyway, I was coming down Liberty Hill. It's very steep, and an SUV went out in front of me, and I was very fortunate to hit the front of the SUV. If you're
now we can see you. You're good.
yeah, if you got like, here's the box part of the SUV, and then here you have the front part of the SUV. Well, fortunately, I hit right here and went over, because if I had hit here,
you would hit the top. Yeah,
I would have slammed right in. I might have even hurt the the passenger, and I certainly we would not have been having this conversation, this show. So, I hit the front end. I went flying. I bounced, but I had a broken a hairline fracture on my shoulder, a little bump on my head. That was the second bounce. Some road rash on the arm for protecting myself.
That's how it goes down.
Yeah, and but that was then. That was in 1999. I'm still riding.
And let's hope that we all keep riding, because the bike, not only does it show us things that we wouldn't see otherwise, but it keeps us fit. It's just, bikes are awesome. But I appreciate you coming down here and chatting with me. Fist bumper here.
Yeah.
I'll check in with all these dudes. SF Bike Messengers, LA Bike Messengers. I'll share this. I'll post it all over the internet. But yeah, so happy you get to stop by, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your days here in LA.
Yeah,
down here.
I think I will. Yeah.
All right, listeners, we're about to sign out.